busy week in Fire Emblem. Updates a little late thanks to New Year's, so today we got the new update 7.1 refines and the Kadean Mage banner. Stay tuned, we'll be going over the banner, Tempest Trials, and Ephemeral manuals in the coming days. Meanwhile, Choose Your Legend 7 is already underway. Keep on voting for your favorites. Later this week, I'll be doing my weekly Fire Emblem Engage news roundup. Hope you guys have been enjoying those. Less than 2 weeks to the game's launch, and we'll probably be getting a banner in Fae later this month. Alright, enough 2023 introductions. In this video, we'll be talking about the new refines for Death Knight, Sirius, Claude, Winter Sothis, and we got remixes for Mythic Altina and Legendary Leif. Because Harmonic Winter Altina has the same weapon as her base ult, she is also getting the same refine. Lots to talk about, so let's get into it. First up, the Death Knight is finally getting a refine, one of the most disappointing additions from the early Three Houses batches because this scary dude is pretty tough in the main game, but in Fae he was not anywhere near the same level. Did he get some redemption? Well, he got something alright. Death Knight is a Lance Cavalier and a Heroic Growl unit. Scythe Sariel is largely the same but now easier to activate. Accelerate special trigger, if a bonus is active on the foe or if they have more than 75% HP, grant +4 to all stats and prevent a follow-up attack. Okay effects, but the main issue was that Scythe Sariel needed the foe to have buffs or statuses, which meant it was out of your control. Now you can just fight a healthy foe. Not the best condition, but better than before. For the refine, if DK has more than 25% HP, grant +4 to all stats and a free follow-up attack. So overall, this is a really simple weapon. It's not that bad, but certainly isn't making the Death Knight any more scary than before. Accelerate specials, +8 to all stats, and Omni Breaker. Decent, but not busted at all. Kinda expected of a Growl unit though. A lot of people will compare this to Geralt, which is fair. Geralt doesn't have the accelerated specials or follow-up denial, but he provides attack and defense deals and just has a way better stat spread. Death Knight can get 4 sets of Dragon Flowers, but his stats are so middling that he'll be a jack of all trades, master of none. If anything, Death Knight will have more speed than Geralt, and that is a decent perk to have. He'll be able to now break through slower tanks and double them. In terms of builds, nothing really stands out for DK. You can basically mix and match any of the usual Cavalry classic skills. Catch 4, Clash 4, Near Trace for Kanto, Menace, or Rouse buffs. Before it was ill-advised to run low skills because of how the Scythe work, but it can work now. With Omnibreaker, Death Knight is a decent unit on either phase. You can choose to stack more attack, defense, or res. Attack and defense would probably be the safest for a generic melee cav build. Honestly, despite the basic effects, you at least also get a bunch of stats. If you want to fight anyone, then Death Knight at least is better at that. You could go for distant counter to emulate 3 houses if you want. Besides the usual skills, you could use Flow Guard or Seal Defense 4 to access Guard. They both have different conditions, but Guard would be nice if you didn't want a sturdier unit. For some healing, you could go Surge Sparrow or Sturdy Surge with Heavy Blade. Death Knight at least accelerates specials to run higher cooldown options if you wish. Again though, nothing really stands out. For the most part, Death Knight's refine is alright, and you can have some fun with it, but he won't be an offensive monster or an unkillable tank. With his type of stats and this weapon, extra stats via merges and Dragon Flowers will be nice, if not mandatory. You'll have a unit with decent attack, defense, and res, and he has enough speed to outspeed the super slower tanks, and you could try to push it farther if you really want. It's not the worst option. Honestly though, Scythe Sariel could possibly be replaced if we ever get an Arcane Lance. For example, Leif's Arcane Sword accelerates specials, has Omni Breaker, and grants some stats, plus comes with Guard. Sadly, the arcane weapons are even putting pressure on some of these demoted and Heroic Growl refines. Next up, we have another Lance Cavalier, this one an older 5-star. Sirius is a bit faster than the Death Knight, but does sacrifice a ton of res to get there. Do not expect this man to tank many magical hits. The Sable Lance got quite a sizable buff. It accelerates specials, and if Sirius initiates combat or is solo, he gets +4 to all stats and the full no follow-up effects. Cavaliers can't run no follow-up, so obviously this is a great perk. The weapon is also slightly easier to use since you can now initiate next to an ally. For the refine, at start of combat, if Sirius has more than 25% HP, he gets 30% damage reduction for 1 hit and more general stats equal to X. X is the number of spaces from start to end of whoever initiated combat times 2 plus 4. This maxes out at +10 to all stats, and you just need to move 3 spaces. This is the Clash effect, although Sirius won't negate debuffs. Still, sizable amount of stats on the table here, +14 to everything if you initiate while moving 3 spaces, and that goes for attackers too. If you don't move, Sirius will still get +8 to all stats, so it's not completely deactivated like usual Clash A skills. With no follow-up and damage reduction, Sirius gets 2 abilities that are very hard to get on a Cavalier. He has potential for a lot of stats, although again, don't expect him to tank all the mages now. This is actually not that different from the Death Knight Refine in theory, but full no follow-up to me is a good bit more useful, and Sirius gets more stats with damage reduction. Besides tanking magical hits, Sirius will do everything better, although obviously he's a lot harder to merge up. In terms of builds, we just don't have a ton of different skills for melee cavalry brawlers. Basically all the same things Death Knight can utilize. Since Sirius has no follow-up, DR, and higher speed, you can build into those easier. For example, attack and speed clash, speed and defense no trace, and speed smoke 4. We already have a clash effect from the Refine, so Sirius kind of already plays into the mobile playstyle. Kanto is Kanto, and speed smoke 4 can provide dodge, which gives more damage reduction. The speed advantage is also nice. Kanto is fun if you plan to be aggressive, since Sable Lance does need to be solo for the enemy phase. If you don't have premium skills, Sirius already has attack and speed solo 3 and low attack and speed. Both of those are fine to keep. Double solos and Rouse buffs with a low is a pretty basic classic setup. We can substitute in attack and speed Menace or Surge Sparrow for healing, but you do want to give up, or you will give up some mixed phase stats. Surge Sparrow with speed smoke 4 could also work. If you just want some basic skills, Desperation is great with no follow-up, but Sirius does need to be above 25% HP. Heavy Blade is our only cooldown option, and we have a couple catch Sacred Seals. Something that would be nice to have is Guard, but Flow Guard gets partially wasted here. The other options are Seal Defense 4 and the newish Guard Sacred Seal. Not unlike the Death Knight, Sirius's Refine is generally just solid all around, but he's not specializing in anything. You got a lot of stats, and with no follow-up and DR, that's always annoying to deal with if you don't outspeed him. Generally, Sirius wants to be on the move, but you aren't heavily punished for not moving. Perhaps catch or solo skills would be better if that's a concern for you. If Cavaliers can get some more varied skills like Clash or Flow, then Sirius may be in a good spot to use them. Not a complex Refine, but solid. Just watch out for magic. Next up, we have our first House Leader Refine, and this is for the base version of Claude. The Siriel 4 3 Houses Refines were pretty great, and boy, regular Claude is not missing out on the fun. He's a colorless bow cavalier, and Cunning Bow has basically been entirely reworked. It still grants +3 speed, and now, if a bonus is active on Claude, or the foe has a penalty active, inflict -5 to all stats on the foe. This was technically all the weapon provided before, it's just with a different condition now. New is if Claude initiates, reduce damage for 1 hit by percentage equal to total bonuses on Claude and penalties on the foe times 3, max of 60% DR. Additionally, if that bonus / penalty total is greater than 10, Claude gets offense and no follow-up. Alrighty, so Cunning Bow's original activation condition is now tied to a no follow-up effect. The -5 debuffs are activated on any bonus on Claude or penalty on the foe. To sort of emulate Fallen Star, Claude can get up to 60% DR by totaling the number of buffs and debuffs. In the context of this weapon, the buffs used are always the ones on Claude, and the penalties used are the ones on the foe. For the refined portion, at start of turn, if any foes are within 3 columns or 3 rows centered on Claude, inflict -7 defense on those foes, and Claude gets a +6 attack field buff. At start of combat, if Claude is more than 25% HP, he gets +5 attack and speed, and bonus doubler for attack only, and penalty doubler for the foe's defense only. Good lord, this Refine technically has 9 different effects, including the basic +3 speed. There are so many little things going on, but they all synergize together. Basically, Claude emits defense debuffs and a big AoE, you then double the debuff in combat. He also gains an attack field buff, which you also double in combat. Keep in mind, -7 defense plus 6 attack is a total of 13 buffs and debuffs. 13 times 3 is 39% DR, and that activates the offensive no follow-up perk as well. As the name suggests, this weapon is very cunning. Claude has a lot going on behind the scenes and has backup plans as well. If the foe neutralizes debuffs, you can just fully buff up Claude. If Claude's buffs are neutralized, you can just mass debuff the foe. This Refine is self-sufficient, however, you can make it more consistent with extra buff and debuffing sources. This is definitely a good sign if you're a fan of the other house leaders. They have some busted ults, but the OG forms could end up pretty decent too with these new Refines. For Claude, he is mainly a player phase unit much like his other ults. Similar to Fallen Star, the DR % only happens when initiating, and that goes for the no follow-up effect too. That's fine since his Claude has 3 movement. If you have newer skills, we can make a budget Fallen Star setup. The new Remote Sparrow grants +7 attack and speed and 30% DR on initiations. Stack that with whatever DR Cunning Bow grants for extra safety. Quick note, if you don't want to splurge, Swift Sparrow 3 is on an Ephemera unit this month. That works fine too. Next, with Seal Defense 4, Claude applies defense debuffs, so he will get Guard to prevent a big special proc. In total, you will also rack up minus 23 defense debuffs. Only minus 4 defense is coming from this Seal skill. Claude also gets plus 17 attack, so yeah, this is a crap ton of firepower. If you survive, you can use Speed Smoke 4 to be our substitute Fallen Star status. It's not 80% DR, but something is better than nothing. Attack Smoke 4 could work too, and Panic Smoke 4 is also interesting. You're going to double all debuffs, not just defense, plus you inflict panic, which may screw the enemy over more. For other skills, Claude comes with low speed and defense, which works just fine. It does not interfere with Cunning Bow. You can run the other usual cavalry skills. Catch is great since Claude applies debuffs, and Far Trace for Control is always nice. You could run Wind or Water Sweep since technically not getting hit at all is better than damage reduction. Desperation works too, but Claude does have an HP condition. Like our other Cavaliers, Heavy Blade is your only option for cooldown, and it's the only way to proc Deadeye in one round. If you want to run a Low or Far Trace, you could use Guard as a Sacred Seal, otherwise fit in your favorite stat boosters. While it's a lot to go through, Cunning Bow looks pretty dang strong as long as Claude is buffed or the foe is debuffed. To hit the max 60% DR, you will need more buffs or debuffs. In general, the more the merrier. OG Claude is looking pretty annoying as a Bow Cavalier, plus he does provide a big defense debuff zone for your team. That's nice if you have more physical units. Actually solid, refined, and possibly the most impressive weapon of this batch in terms of just a glow up. Moving on, we have our special units of the month. Winter Sothis is this month's seasonal refine. She's a green armored dragon, and let's see if she can redeem her mythic remix. Snow's Grace got a nice buff. It still grants plus 3 speed and neutralizes dragon effectiveness. If Sothis has more than 25% HP, grant plus 5 tall stats and neutralize units penalties during combat. The HP condition went from 50% to 25%, and neutralizing debuffs is super strong on arm units with all their BST. I personally think it continues to get better and better since it just straight up stops anything that relies on debuffs. Now, for the refine, if the foe initiates combat or the foe has more than 75% HP, grant plus 4 to all stats, grant defensive no follow-up, and gain 30% damage reduction for 1 hit. As Snow's Grace isn't even a distant counter weapon, but it's not vastly different from Mythic Sothis' refine. That is not what you want to be compared to. Instead of distant counter, Winter Sothis has debuff neutralization and defensive no follow-up with plus 5 more to all stats. Mythic Sothis has slightly more DR, but overall both weapons are not that insane. This does give Winter Sothis even more stats to abuse, which was kind of her thing. Keep in mind her stat spread has a super high 41 base speed. With this refine, she hits 53 speed very easily, and it only gets tougher to double her. Winter Sothis does keep Sirius too, that's her special, and it scales off of speed plus heals for 30% of damage dealt. While most arm units are just spamming defensive specials, Sirius can be an interesting keepsake. Winter Sothis' base kit consists of Distant Counter and Special Fighter. Back then, it was just incredibly tough to stop super fast arm units with Special Fighter, and Distant Counter lets them fight anyone. Well, we literally just got Winter Black Knight, who basically hands Sothis upgrades to this build. Distant Dart adds plus 5 speed, and Special Fighter 4 adds more healing. In fact, with Sirius, Sothis will now heal for 60% of damage dealt, which is honestly pretty good. That is on top of her charging Sirius after 1 hit. This is where the DR comes in. Sothis reduces his damage, fires back with Sirius, and heals a ton of HP. She then prevents additional hits with defense no follow-up, guard, and her high speed. In terms of survivability, this seems like a fun build, but if the DR gets pierced, then that may not be great. For offense, the Sirius damage is nice, but it's no Black Luna proc. Unfortunately, Sothis does not get offense no follow-up, so while she has the speed to double a lot of things, she may still just get stopped. Winter BK has full no follow-up effects, so even if Black Luna doesn't get him a kill, he does have a chance for another hit. Now, speaking of Black Knight, we also mentioned Special Spiral 4 with Black Luna to pierce damage reduction. Well, Sothis can do the same, but like I said, Sirius isn't exactly nuking as hard as Black Luna. Despite that, like Winter BK, Sothis can take to the player phase thanks to her speed. Ideally, you want Armor March mobility, and turns out, dragons cannot use Assault True. That's pretty dumb to me. Regardless, like back in the old days, if you just want to run at people with Special Fighter, then Armor March and Sothis' incredible stats can still be annoying. For alternative skills, Fallen Shield could be used, but you're losing a lot of potential stats in the A slot just to deny people like Duocrom his free damage. Maybe it's worth considering though, if with all of Sothis' total stats. Now, since she neutralizes debuffs, you can combo that with Close Defense 4 or Wily Fighter to deny the enemy field boss. Just trying to outstat the enemy can work, especially with Special Fighter feeding Sirius procs all day. If you want follow-up attacks, Dragon's Ire 4 is okay, so this is just using the free follow-up to cancel out Wary Fighter effects. Maybe not the best usage. If you were going to go for player or mixed phase setups, then Speed Smoke 4 or Menace skills would be fun options. Attack and Speed Menace would be gross if Sothis can run someone down. Last, in terms of save skills, you can pick up Defense from as far as save from Winter BK. You can actually get Distant Dart, Special Fighter 4, and Defense from as far as save 2. That is fine for the value you're getting. However, maybe far save isn't the best idea currently. Near save might be safer, and Sothis at least doesn't have to worry about all those falchion users. Well, she's still going to be at a color disadvantage though. In terms of Hardy Fighter, you can run it, but Snow's Grace kinda doesn't work the best with it. You already have defense enough follow-up, and you have to use Sacred Cow or Escutcheon. Sothis then needs cooldown consistent recharging, and she may not get to double back herself. Overall, Winter Sothis got an okay upgrade. I wouldn't call it incredible, but she is still insanely fast, and that's always annoying to deal with on an army unit. The DC plus Special Fighter build is literally just made to stat check foes. If they don't outspeed Sothis and can't one-shot her, then things are not going to go well. Personally, the new Special Fighter 4 stacking healing with Sirius is interesting. It does seem like this refine is pushing for that upgrade. Whether you want to run Distant Counter though is up to you. Next up, we have a couple remixes. Let's start with legendary Leif, a colorless bow cavalier who has low speed but higher attack because he comes with a brave bow. Meisterbogen did not get any base changes. Dual phase brave bow, and in the player's hands, Leif prevents a follow-up attack. I like that they never use this condition again. I guess who cares about balance. As for the refine, if Leif initiates or is within 2 spaces of an ally, grant plus for all stats, deal true damage equal to 10% of the foe's attack stat, including on AoE specials, and give Leif no guard. As a conservative estimate, most of our units can hit 60 attack easily. That means 6 true damage with the plus 4 attack for about 10 extra damage per hit. Since this is a brave weapon, you double that amount. At least around 20 extra damage from this refine is nice. As for the no guard part, this is great too. 2 brave hits equals 2 cooldown. This does work with Leif's remixed Nurin Zeo 2, which works the exact same, but now gives him quick impulse. -1 cooldown to start the battle. Basically, if you were to drop S strength for something else, Nurin Zeo still gonna end up on a 2 cooldown. Brave attacking will always charge the special, which gives a Gale Force action. In theory, this is an okay refined remix, but there are some issues. First off, if you do not use the Gale Force action to attack again, Nurin Zeo's second activation now starts at 3 cooldown, and 2 brave hits won't be enough to charge it. The remix should have just been times balls, to be honest. The other issue for Leif is that he still has no way to deal with damage reduction besides applying just more damage. That might work against some units, but if he fails to get the kill, he now has to survive to utilize Gale Force. Leif's only defense is a fall denial and okay base defense and res. He will get doubled by most units because you're not winning any speed checks, and Leif himself has no damage reduction. Leif's brave attacks will also charge enemy specials faster, so failing to get the KO in 2 hits is not the best. For a brave weapon, this refine adding more damage is great, but if the damage isn't enough, then well, good luck. In terms of playstyle, nothing has really changed for Leif. He's still an offensive bow cav with Gale Force and does have some enemy phase potential since he has brave attacks all the time. For the basic setup, you just want to run all the damage you can get. Tag and defense or res catch 4 for stats on either phase. His default attack and res push 4 works too. You can replace S strength with low attack and defense or seal defense 4. Like our Wyvern ninjas, Leif really just wants those -11 defense debuffs. You can then use his innate defense smoke 3 to utilize with the Gale Force action. Upgrade this to Defense and Res Smoke 3, which is back on the current banner. The res debuffs don't help, but Leif gets an attack buff if you didn't have one already, and he's going to get Pathfinder. Maybe you can set up a Pathfinder opening with Nurin Zeo's action. But you can only move 1 space, so it's a bit tough to make work. You can also run Far Trace, however, it's only useful if you use the Gale Force action to attack in place. Because Nurin Zeo's applies gravity, you only get remaining movement if you attack in place, and after that second attack, you only get to move 1 space with Kanto. It's potentially useful, but it does make Far Trace not as important for legendary Leif. Now let's retrace a bit. For Leif's remix, he did receive Joint Drive Attack for free. I feel like someone's trolling because while it can technically grant Leif extra damage, you will need a unit to keep up with his 3 movement first. If Leif is initiating alone, Defense Smoke would probably be better to gain extra damage on the Gale Force hits. Joint Drive Attack does help if you want to tank an enemy phase hit, but for Leif's main bread and butter long range engagements, it's kind of a strange choice. It's free though, so try it out if you want. Regarding enemy phase, Leif can utilize his dual phase Brave Bow to scare squishier attackers. He isn't exactly tanky, but if Leif can survive a hit, you can fire back with a lot of damage. If he ends up on lower health, you could use Vantage to cheese ranged foes. This could be nice for more dangerous maneuvers. Leif can just snipe some melee units and then fend off multiple ranged threats with Vantage. Last, while it feels like the remix of Norn-Zeo is meant to replace S-Drink, S-Drink can still be useful. If Leif's first fight were to end with one single arrow, like if you would snipe a flyer, Norn-Zeo will not proc. With S-Drink though, the special would now be on one cooldown. With no guard, it has to proc no matter what, outside of Pulse Smoke. This might be worth it if you feel Leif has enough damage or the extra action is just that much more valuable to you. Overall, Legendary Leif did get some nice new tools, but it does feel like he could have gotten more. The extra damage portion and no guard effect is totally fine considering he has a Brave Bow, but without a way to deal with damage reduction, you then need to worry about Leif's own survival before Norn-Zeo kicks in. He has the absolute basics in terms of protection, but it's still a concern. One potential solution is a defense or res version of the new remote Sparrow A skill. 30% damage reduction isn't huge and it's one hit only, but that's better than nothing for Leif. Maybe keep an eye out for those in the future. Last on the list, we actually have 2 units sharing 2 swords. Mythic Altina is getting her Refine and Remix, and since Harmonic Winter Altina and Sanaki have the same weapon, they're getting the Refine too. Both units have similar stats, but Mythic is a flying sword unit, Winter is an infantry unit. This makes skill options quite different, although Mythic Altina is basically ready to roll out of the gate. Both Altinas also have Twin Blades, a unique 2 cooldown special that boosts damage by 40% res, and pierces damage reduction. As a reminder, Altina dual wields Ike's, Ragnar, and Black Knight's Alondite, and these are not tiny swords. These are both two-handed great swords, and this lady uses both like a badass. Like their Ike and Black Knight iterations, they have distant counter, and Altina gets dual phase brave attacks like Legendary Leif. This sword has 10 might. For the Refine, if foe initiates combat or has more than 75% HP, grant plus 5 attack and res, grant breath type special cooldown, and neutralize enemy attack and defense field boss. Relatively simple Refine, but absolutely works well for Altina. Breath type cooldown is very strong because Twin Blades is a 2 cooldown special. If Altina takes a hit, Twin Blades procs. If she strikes twice, Twin Blades also procs. In addition, more attack is doubled in value from Brave Fits, and low attack and defense just as solid as well. Good stuff. Now, where things get a little crazy for Mythic Altina is her unique A skill, Asher's Chosen Plus. Neutralize fly effectiveness. If Altina is adjacent to only beast or dragons, if she is solo, or if the foe has more than 75% HP, grant plus 9 attack, defense, and res. Then, if Altina has more res than the foe, deal true damage equal to 70% of the difference, maxing out at plus 7 true damage. Additionally, she has Dragon Wall damage reduction, so if you have higher res, up to 40% DR. Altina needs to have 10 or more res to max out both of those effects. Wow, so big buff for this A skill. It now has a third way to activate, being the foe is healthy. This means Altina doesn't need to really play positioning games anymore, but you can still be solo or next to non-humans and will activate anyway. She now gets a huge stab boost, damage reduction, and even more damage. Very impressive stuff. Like Leif, Altina gets a ton of extra damage, which is doubled with Brave hits, but she also gets tankier with Dragon Wall. Important to understand, Harmonic Winter Altina does not get Asher's Chosen. That means she needs her own A skill, but you got the Refine and Twin Blades still. As an infantry unit, Harmonic Altina has a couple great skill options. She also has her Harmonized skill, grants Resonance Blades to herself and allies from the same games. For Altina, she also gets the Vantage status. Unlike a base Vantage, this works at any HP range. This lets Altina combo Vantage with certain B skills. Generally speaking, both Altinas can do similar things, but Mythic has Asher's Chosen, while Harmonic has a whole slew of infantry options. Let's start with Mythic first. In addition to the Refine and Remix, she's going to get Attack and Defense Hold in the C slot for free. That is excellent for more damage and becoming tankier, plus Altina can help her allies too. Like before, you can use all of these new tools in a Vantage build. DC plus Brave hits plus Vantage is nasty. With the extra cooldown, Mythic no longer needs Heavy Blade to retaliate with Twin Blades all the time. You also just have a ton of bonus attack now. The main concern for this Altina is winning the res checks. With her Refine and A skill, she has plus 14 res on 36 base. That's pretty good, but you could boost it further to be more consistent. Attack and Defense Hold is awesome, but maybe trying Attack and Res Oath 4 would work out better. For one, it's easy self-buffing, and you're going to get bonus attack and res in combat when near allies. This skill can give Altina +9 extra res to work with, and while hold skills are good, it doesn't help with the res check. While Harmonic Altina doesn't need to win any res checks, this is also still a good skill for her. She also already has the tier 3. To further boost resistance, you can run Sacred Seals like attack him as solo or attack him as form, take your pick. Like our other dual phase brave weapons, Seal Defense 4 is once again a damage option. -11 DOS is just too good with a souped up brave weapon. Now, while Mythic Altina has Dragon Wall, Harmonic could get DR via Quick Riposte 4. It's one hit enemy phase only, but 25% DR is still nice, and even Mythic can run it if you want. It gives both of them the opportunity to quad attack on the enemy phase if the foe doesn't stop them. Now let's discuss Harmonic Altina's options. First off, her base kit is Attack and Res Unity, No C Disrupt, and Attack and Res 03. With the Harmonized skill granting Vantage, this Altina can counter any attacker via No C Disrupt. For example, you can combo this with Duo Micaiah to add dominance to Altina, and it's a nasty combo where she strikes first all the time. It's even better now that the extra cooldown means you no longer need steady or warding breath. While this is a fun combo in modes like Aether Raids where you cannot use the Harmonized skill all the time, in that case, you could run normal Vantage if you want. Now, to explore more skills, Attack and Res Finish 4 is great. +7 attack and res, +5 true damage, and 7 HP healing on hit. Altina doubles the true damage and healing, so this is an excellent option now. You can combo this with Attack and Defense Bulwark for debuffs, the Super Obstruct effect, and more healing after combat. We don't have damage reduction on this Altina, but if she lives, there's a lot of healing potential to recover. If you're worried about guard effects, Tempo can be used. There is no attack and defense tempo currently, but it will ensure Twin Blades activates and you might deny an enemy special. This skill could also be replaced with Times Pulse 4. Twin Blades will always go on 1 cooldown, but since the Refine grants +1 special charge, we can now use it to bypass guard. This is only countered if the enemy has no special charge plus the guard combo. Times Pulse can also be used with Gale Force if you want, and in the C slot there are other fun skills like Attack Smoke 4 or even Assault Troop if you want to cosplay her summer pairing with Edelgard. For Sacred Seals, you could try Infantry Hexblade on an ally mage if Altina is running Bulwark. Bulwark protects the space directly behind her, so Infantry Hexblade support could give adaptive damage. You could also do bonus Delbert just to juice this Altina up even more. Overall, Mythic Altina is mostly ready to roll with her new remixed kit. I would try to give her res field buffs and a res boosting Sacred Seal. For Harmonic Altina, her kit still works fine, but she got more interesting options now with Finish 4 and Bulwark on the table. If needed, she can also bust out the Vantage status, and you got Twin Blades proccing all the time thanks to the extra cooldown. Ragnell-Alondite combined seem to have gotten a pretty good deal for being 2 DC weapons. I would say the Refine is solid and Mythic Altina's remix is incredible. She may have been blessed by the goddess, but the devs also seem to have her as one of their favorites. Can't really fault that, and like Shez, it really just proves Fire Emblem needs more dual wielding characters. That'll be it for the first new Refines batch for 2023. Let me know your thoughts on them and share any builds if you plan to use them. Stay tuned. Up next, we have the Cadean Mage banner to go over. 4 very scary new units. I'll try to get that out as soon as possible. Thank you for watching, have fun with these new refines, and see you in the next video.